Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside you guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like this current video, comment your thoughts on everything that we're going to get into today, as you see by the titles. And again, check our past podcast that we had with Kush, and again, the video that I had uploaded talking about everything on the 125th anniversary from my perspective. We just try to get something out as quick as possible. But we have Mr. Santangelo here today to discuss everything and give his takes on the manners. So again, we'll start off, man, with the draw against Genoa. Another result that is inexcusable. Everything about heading into this match, 125th anniversary aside, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
Strictly talking on this one, part of it was exciting to see Jimenez and Liberali start. The other side of it was, what are the odds we get 3 points here? And lo and behold, this match was met with horrendous finishing, okay play. Genoa played fine defensively. Like, you have to give some respect to the opponent eventually. However, inexcusable from Milan at home for such a traditional festive night met with negativity. It feels like we've just been catapulted back into the past with the Banter. I mean, your thoughts on just the entire performance here? Are you of the inkling of, Milan kind of actually played well, but our finishing was bad, and if we could build off of that, we'll be okay? Or are you more of the no nonsense, like I don't really care how the finishing was or how that trend is over the course of the next few matches? It was 0-0. They didn't win. They drew against a side that they should have never have drawn against at home. Is that how you feel about this?
Yeah, I think at this point don't think it's excusable. I think I'm upset. When you were just talking, you can kind of see me holding back a little bit of like my anger and frustration because, like, truthfully, like, it's become laughable at this point watching this team on and off the pitch, right?
Yeah.
The way things are getting dealt with, the media having a go and having a field day. You're giving them so much fuel to attack this team. If it's not potential player unrest and potential player exits, then it's quotes like this that we come about with, the media regarding, Fonseca. And then you have this event, which is supposed to be a festive night, as you mentioned, right? It's supposed to be a celebration of our rich history. 125 years, that's a very special thing. The unveiling of the new jerseys and such a monumental night for our club and our fan base, who made the trip out there. Obviously, the ultras are always there and loud and proud, but the fan base that goes out there and buys the new jersey that is not cheap, right? The jerseys are not cheap.
I think your brother was one of them.
Football matches is not cheap. Spending evenings at these matches when you could be spending them around your family, if people don't go with their family, people commit a lot to this, and for us to put this product out on the field and not get a victory here. Again, I know, you mentioned you have to give at some point credit to the opposition, and Genoa were fine defensively. I don't think that we did anything outrageous to break them down. I didn't think we played spectacular. I didn't think this was going to be a match where we absolutely obliterate them. But you think that you would have a little bit more built-in anger and grit and toughness. Like, guys, this is a big moment for us. This is a big moment for our fan base and our club. Like, let's go out there and let's put on something special for these fans and give them a victory. And we didn't. We had a couple chances in this match. Morata, point blank range. Basically, all he had to do was just kind of pass it into the net and rifles it. It hits off the crossbar. He had two clear chances that he should capitalize on for someone of his experience and body of work, right? And the fact that we don't score these goals, the fact that really no one moved the needle for me, it's on the veteran side and the out and out starter side was alarming as well. The player that stood out the most for me was Alex Jimenez, and it says a lot when it's a player that hasn't played for the first team this year, and he's the standout. He's the lone takeaway from this night. And it's just frustration at this point. I mentioned we can't afford to be in a position where we're not getting victories against these teams. We haven't done ourselves any services, any favors by having some of the results that we've had in the build up to this match. So yeah, that's just my overall frustration. But truthfully, with every passing video that we do, with every recording of a preview or a post match, I just kind of lose interest in trying to kind of unpack this team and to understand this team. Because I at this point, I don't think I'm ever going to understand this team. The tactics are week to week. We get up for every sixth or seventh game. If it comes up against a good team, maybe not. Maybe I'm even asking too much there, because I think that, obviously we've had really stinkers against some good teams. But I just think that, again, trying to wrap my head around this team and what they're going to produce on a given match day is a waste of my time at this point. Truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, that's also why I didn't even really want to address too much. I want to let yourself do it, because it's really just beating a dead horse here. And truthfully, it's just mediocrity. It's really what it is. This is their placement in the table, their results on a week-to-week basis just reek of mediocrity. Players not good enough, constant changing of the lineups, like yeah, to an extent, sure, the striker should finish, and in a normal world where, but it's not normal. You know what the normal world is for Milan? How many times we have just uttered that line? Well, if X finished better, then Milan wouldn't be here. How many times do we have to say that? How many times do we have to ask every single fucking transfer market that we want a player that is a proven caliber striker? And I don't mind Morata in general, but I do mind it when that is your solution to scoring. That is a horrible solution when it comes to that. You paid 13 million for a player who overall is a good player, but is not the type of striker that will lead you to glory. He's not leading you to glory as your main striker. If he was your second option or even your third, then I'd be like, okay, you're probably set up well. He cannot be this guy. And then the same goes for Tammy as well, right? I believe he was subbed off at the half.
He had a chance though. And a chance most strikers convert.
I believe he dragged one wide. It was kind of a tough angle. It was kind of a tough angle, but still, regardless, right? Sometimes strikers have to score something out of nothing, and they didn't, and that goes for every player this match. Again, it's playing down to the opponent. It's at home. It's, as you said, for the anniversary. A couple people have made like comments, and when I do some of like the videos, and you're usually always like the same energy wise, but they were just like, Martino just sounds defeated. And quite frankly, it's not that like I'm defeated. I'm just like, what do you want me to say now? Like there's nothing to say. They're not very good or good at all, and the results are going to reflect that. And there's very little things that you could point to and say, that's a bright spot. We could look towards that. Which I guess we could kind of just like get into and discuss is just these youngsters making the debuts. Jimenez, as you mentioned, this is his debut for this season, whereas Liberali, this was his overall first debut for Milan. Gets to start here, whether or not it was injuries to Loftus-Cheek. The kid's 17. We know how talented he is. I thought all circumstances given, pressure of the moment, opponent, the way they play, debut, everything involved, it was fine. It was a fine performance. I'm not here to there were some bad moments, absolutely, where he takes some risks. You're like, oh boy, like you're a teenager. It makes sense. But there was other moments where you're like, yes, positive actions. Moving forward. The ball is still glued to his feet. Technical ability is sound. It's just really like, how does he develop physically? For me personally, I'm not sure what else. I mean, decision making comes with time. It's obviously going to be a negative, I guess you could say, for a youngster. That's always the case. So, like, for me, I can't rip on him too much. But as you mentioned, you thought Jimenez in general, let alone out of the youngsters that featured here, because Camarda came on after. My question is to you, and you probably already know the answer to this. Why? Why did we have to wait till December, what was it, 16th for that? Or 15th? Why are we waiting to December 15th, Matt? When we've seen what the fullbacks look like all year, and we heard Zlatan, whatever his job is, say over the summer, oh yeah, Alex Jimenez will be a part of our first team. It took way too long to see someone that is so clearly, obviously better than the players that we have. What gives with that? Like what on top of the Liberali performance? So just kind of unpack those two things.
Improper planning. I mean, I think that, they've waited so many matches for players to kind of shake off some bad play or to figure it out, like the Emerson situation, right? Calabria situation. It's like you're trying to give the player the benefit of the doubt, and the only way that a player can break out of a funk, in my opinion, is by simply playing, right? Like you can train hard, and there's players that how many times have we heard in the past, when former players are asked about like who was the best player, most technically skilled player you played with, and they're like, oh, this guy was really good on the training ground. He played super hard. He did this, and then like when you see it in real match time, you're like, this is the guy. Like it doesn't always translate, and I think that my opinion on players like Emerson and Calabria is ultimately for them to change the narrative and change their perception of how they're viewed by the fan base. Is to play and get that opportunity to put in a good performance, right? That's how you really turn skeptics into believers. We've seen it time and time again at this club, right? But I think Milan fans are so just upset with how things are going, and they're impatient, and I don't blame them for being impatient. It's the 18th of December. We're in 8th place in Serie A. We're failing to really string together like steadily consistent results and steadily, consistent performances from some of these top players. So I just, again, like I want to reiterate it, trying to figure out what the reasoning is behind why guys like Jimenez or Liberali, I know Liberali was a little bit banged up, but and they have their obligations with Milan Futuro, but if it's not working with some of the guys that you have in your first team, and Ibrahimovic is saying that this guy is your backup, why is he going from Teo's backup to basically an emergency fullback on the roster at left back or right back to then starting a game and clear cut being probably one of our most promising and most talented players in the position? Because I don't care, truthfully, on age. Like 17, 18, 21-year-old player can be leaps and bounds ahead of the player ahead of him in the pecking order. And I'm just going to read off some of the stats from Jimenez from FootMob. And, obviously this doesn't tell the entire story, but because we've watched the game, and I think it kind of justifies the eye test, right? Which is always what I try to give more credence to. So Jimenez played 90 minutes, right? That's promising. He didn't do anything that was detrimental to his game or to the team's game to the point where it's like, we got to yank this guy. He's out of his element. So 90 minutes played, 39 of 42 passing, so 93%. He created 2 chances. He had 1 shot on target, 1 shot off target. He had 68 touches, 2 of 3 successful dribbles, passes into the final third 3, 2 of 6 accurate crosses, so not the greatest. Again, there were some jitters and some rawness in his game. 6 recoveries, 6 and 9 ground duels won, and was fouled 3 times. So this is a player that I think that you really got a really good glimpse of what he can offer. He had that penchant to go forward. He made some really good inward runs. There were like hints of his performance that are so similar to the way we always would see Teo play on that left side, right? Where you would see Rafa and you would see Teo kind of running in conjunction with one another, and then Rafa would make that overlapping run on the outside, and then you would see Teo kind of come in, and then he would make that pass to the left, and he would create. So you saw elements of Teo in Jimenez, and I think again there are going to be performances that maybe he drops off and he's not as good as he was in this performance. But I think fans are in a position where they're saying we know what Emerson and Calabria are and are not. They're not solutions for us. They rather see the guys like Jimenez and Liberali, guys that exude some hope for the next generation of this club, top prospects at this club. Because if you're not going to do it now, then when? When are you going to ease in some of these top young individual talents that we have that we've done such a great job nurturing in the lower parts of our academy? So that's kind of where I feel on this. And, look, it looks as though that, just a little brief look ahead to the game on Friday versus Verona, all signs point to Jimenez getting the start in this one.
There's also another Futuro player as well.
Yeah, I saw that too. So
that has been
again, if you want to give Fonseca anything, he's not afraid to This isn't Teo being injured. This is saying, I need
Yeah, he
something
benched
different.
him. He benched him.
He
He
benched
benched
him.
him.
He's like, I need something different. I'm playing this
So
guy.
yeah. So a couple things for me, and I agree with everything you said. One of which is just I wanted to piggyback off of, and I know other fans and supporters agree. I think you'd agree with this because you pretty much said it. I think I tweeted it out. But the point was, I'd rather see Teo on the left. Like, eventually, you still have to play your best players.
Yeah.
The whole thing with like youngsters and the point in contention that a lot of people have is like, oh, he's going to make mistakes. Brother, have you guys seen the right backs? Have you seen the left back? Have you seen everybody
That's
this
part
year?
of growth, though. That's how you grow.
It's part of growth. But the point is, these professionals, these grown ass men are making more mistakes. So
Right.
do you want to stick with the guys that we know suck and we know we're going to make mistakes, or the kids that are promising and are going to make mistakes
We're going to
sometimes?
offer you
And by
something.
the way, Jimenez, like you said, barely made any. So the progress from where we last saw him early in 2024 to now, it was a big boost. It was a big boost. I'm sure he's going to get confidence from it. I'm still sure he's going to make mistakes, just like Liberali did. Liberali, we don't know when he's going to play again. Maybe he plays Friday. Maybe it's against Roma. There's Super Copa coming up at the start of the new year. There's a couple things and directions that the club could kind of head towards in terms of players playing or youngsters. I think you have to live with the results, because how much worse were Liberali and Jimenez, if that, over the guys that were in their positions prior to that?
Also, I rather give a young player like that is prone and susceptible to making mistakes, because that kind of comes with the territory of being a youngster and a player that's just, trying to, ease your way into top level football. I'd rather start those players versus bring them on in the second half of a game, the 15 minutes, 10 minutes, where they're just doing cardio. The team you're playing against is parking the bus.
Yes.
And it
AKA
becomes
almost every Camarda appearance.
it almost becomes a waste, where it's like, I appreciate Camarda coming in, and he's getting some useful minutes. I know Ali mentioned that, but again, there's a different tone. There's a different way of operating within a game when you start versus when you come in very late. We all know that. If you're a playmaker, like Liberali, and you like the ball at your feet, and you like to kind of find guys in behind and get forward, that becomes a little bit more challenging when space is more congested and you don't have the luxury of all that real estate to pass the ball into or to run into, or for runners to run in behind, when they're just sitting back and they're just trying to contest and maintain a draw, just like Genoa was doing. So all credit to Genoa. They're like, bro, you're not going to upstage us. I know this is your night. I don't care. We're going to spoil it for you. And that's exactly what they did, right? So I think that I'd rather have a player like Liberali, who he's training in the build-up to this game. Jimenez, they're training in the build-up to this game, and they get those instructions, and they know that I'm starting. There's a different delivery. There's a different type of approach to a game when you're starting versus coming off the bench. So I'd rather see that. I think Verona is an opponent that Milan should handle. Most of these clubs they should handle. They're not doing it in such ease. No. But I know what, to your point, Calabria offers, Emerson offers, Ruben Loftus-Cheek offers. Play Liberali. At this point, truthfully, I know we need results. I understand that. How bad could it be?
Yes.
How bad could
I understand.
it be?
I agree. And honestly, really difficult moment to debut in. Really tough. And I can't even imagine the emotions for him, because it's such an iconic moment in his life, right? Like, an iconic in general, but like, just that's something he's never going to get. First of all, he's debuting, living out all of our dreams, right? Just let alone starting. You're a highly rated prospect. There's been some rumors of, this team might swoop in if Milan don't do this in minutes. I mean, it really kind of starts with Fonseca, like, fine, these guys don't want to try. I'll play the kids. I have no problem. Backs his word immediately. Sometimes you like what Fonseca says and how he goes about things, and then other times you just
hate he put his money where his mouth is.
He did, but it's a separate story.
No, for sure.
I'll keep on this track. I agree with you 100%. I think Liberali should be playing. I think it's fairly evident. And again, I think he's capable of playing against a low block too. I think he's so technically sound. Yeah. And I know you and Ali made the comment regarding Camarda as well. It was after Pipo and Camarda had a hugging moment. It was a nice moment. And And you guys were kind of like, well, they're not like, like he's probably never going to be like this physical like monster who runs in behind like players and is just like what we saw Mbappe at 17, right? Like that's not the player he is. I would also say you guys are not wrong. I'm not like fully disagreeing. You also have to remember he's 16.
Yeah.
Like the way his speed is compared to like others, I think he's going to age. I think he's an insane athlete. He's really tall for his age too, so like you really have to grow into that body. Liberali, same thing as well. I just like think on like how much you physically grow as a man when from 17 to like 19 is like massive, right? So like to kind of see it develop, I will say this. All three of those players, Jimenez, Camarda, and Liberali, all have professional technical ability. I think they all have it. Jimenez is clearly the most polished. He's also the most oldest. He's the oldest out of all of them. Liberali, the same. I totally agree with your point and Ali's point about this. I think Camarda got subbed down around the 62nd minute. So he's like pretty good, but he's also playing like kind of like out wide. But you see him fight for the ball. I think he had a cross that was like by the byline. And he sent it in, and obviously the finishing was subpar and like no one really got to it. But just like moments like that where he's instinctually so good. Honestly, if he gets a consistent run and there's a good matchup for him where he has the players supporting him, this kid's going to explode sooner or later. Like I genuinely believe in that. It's just got to be about consistency in the club playing like that. Disappointing result, but those were sort of those silver linings. Any other kind of youngsters we want to kind of look towards before we shift towards the negative and the overall bad PR stuff going on here?
No, not
Partizagi,
really.
by any chance? Voss?
I mean, Voss, I know, was someone that they kind of hinted at when he did arrive, because by no accounts, I mean, I'm not saying they spent astronomical fees on him or astronomical fee on him, but I think they brought him in with the intention that he's not a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. Like, this is someone that I think they envision making an appearance with the first team this year at some point. So he might be one of the next guys up, because truthfully, if you look at the midfield quality that we have, it's the distance between our best guys and like the rest of the pack is kind of showing itself. So it wouldn't surprise me if Voss is a guy that gets a nod very soon, maybe early on in 2025 is a possibility. So I'm excited about him as well. But again, like if you're not creating the pathway, you're not creating a strategy to get these players to that next step, then I think you're doing them a disservice, because it strikes me as a club right now, the way that management is doing things, that you're going to have all these talents in Serie C, and they said they're going to utilize the Serie C team to essentially funnel players from there to the first team as a way to, add in players versus spending on the market, right? Which I don't disagree with. I don't think that's a bad approach, but you can't say that. And then when the players in the first team are underperforming and you're also getting injuries at this time of the year, which we are, right? Like Okafor, Morata, like these guys are getting banged up. Pulisic, show us. Okay, you said you're going to tap into the Milan Futuro team that you built up. You bought players. They were very active in advancing this team. Show us, because the players and the product that you're putting on the field that you guys assembled is not cutting it right now. And I think Fonseca is going to be in those positions, because people are going to latch back onto that comment where he says, if I have to play the kids, I will. Okay, play the kids. Play them.
I believe Vitiello said immediately when they signed Voss that he was going to be a hybrid between the Futuro and the first team. I think he was banged up at one point, and then also at the same time, I know we always forget this. I'm not saying you forget this. It's an adaptation to a new country, new culture, language, style.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
adapting to your teammates. Like
that's stuff that are more equipped for that step. But I think, again, Voss is someone that I envision getting his debut.
He has to, because Musa and Loftus-Cheek are banged up. Benacer will eventually return, but like also he's profiled more apparently as a traditional 6, as a defensive midfielder. So eventually, like what we all say, just like in American sports over here, specifically Major League Baseball, it applies the best. You literally don't know what you have until you put it out there. You never know. You have to give them a chance. Hopefully it comes with some consistency for some of these players. I'm not asking for this in every single position, but as you mentioned and as many others have, but if there's first team players, professional grown men that are sucking consistently, put it in the youngsters.
And
Just put them in.
I'm
You're
also
14
keen.
points
I'm
off the
also
top.
keen to see if Voss, to your point, right, as Voss being someone who profiles for the double pivot more or less, right?
So they say, yeah.
So they say, right? I'm keen to see if that's something that kind of comes to a head sooner rather than later, because there have been a lot of conversations, based on what we're seeing from the media, about the usage of Fofana, where it's like at some point, I hate to say it, but like Fofana might get banged up, right? Like Pulisic, he played a ton of minutes. They tried to kind of ease him a bit, obviously with his past injury record. I have no problem with Pulisic, getting the extra time that he needs. But at some point, you might be in a position where if these injuries kind of keep occurring at this point of the season, you might be in a position where it's like, okay, Fofana banged up, he has to miss a match day or two. You bring up Voss, and Voss plays alongside Tijani because, as you mentioned, he might profile in that area pretty well.
Yeah, that's what the unfortunate reality of it all is, because we're just gonna also have just the amount of lineup turnover, and you're just having so many different like guys moving and mixing and matching, and it's like Fonseca's wrong, but he's right, and then also the results aren't there, and it's just a mess. It's just a mess. Speaking of messes, the 125th anniversary was completely spoiled for so many reasons. We covered the result already. We'll talk about the off-field stuff. So let's start out by saying Maldini did not show up, Boban did not show up, Gattuso did not show up. From what I understand, Johnny Rivera wasn't even extended an offer to show up. Kaká, I didn't even that one. I'm not sure if there was obligations or something.
There was probably I would be stunned if he didn't get an invite. Like, stunned.
Yeah. As far as Kaká, I don't know about invite, but Boban, Maldini, Rivera, it's a little separate. But still, to your point, Kaká doesn't show up. So with that I understand where they come from. Boban left on bad terms, even if it was with Elliott, and he's always very outspoken. That interview with Ibra, Zlatan, whatever you want to call him, highly noted. What do you do? Maldini, like the least surprising thing. It's the 125th anniversary of like something we care so deeply about. And it's not everything in life. We get that. We understand. We have real lives. We have priorities. However, when it comes to this, it's not heartbreaking. It's more depressing. And those are synonymous in a way. But the depressing, bleak aspect of it is it so much reminds me of the mid-2010s when Maldini wanted nothing to do with the club. And I'm not here to say Maldini is bigger than the club. I never believe in that stuff, right? No player is. However, if there's any person or symbol that I would ever listen to on a consistent basis, and I think is always fair and is right about what the direction of the club should be, it's this man. And the fact that he doesn't show up with the way that he had left and the way his relationship has been with the club since he has retired outside of those couple of years, it's pathetic. And the fact that there is no attempt to mend relationships, which is really difficult because of who the owner is when he wants to be the owner, it is just met with like, is this really a celebration? Is this more of like a look back on of like, happy birthday, this is a Lieutenant Dan Photoshop picture from Forrest Gump where everybody's celebrating, everybody wants to be happy, but internally this is how everyone feels. There's no celebration, there's no smiles, there's nothing that you feel like you want to be proud of that you see on the pitch that you get off the pitch. There's no identity between the fans, the owners alike. I mean, you feel it. You say it almost every single week. Just the lack of emotion involved. Many of fans agree with this. We always root for wins, so please don't conflate that. We always want the club to do well. Yeah. But sometimes in certain eras and certain stretches, when stuff like this happens, you cannot support it. You can't even be anything but critical, because you have to be. And I'm not here to point fingers, but I am pointing a finger at Gerry Cardinale. You didn't show up. You didn't show up. You didn't give an excuse. You didn't make a public comment about it. You didn't wish them happy birthday or anything. You didn't address some of the other stuff that's been going on. Every single time that we hear from Gerry Cardinale, and I had highlighted it in the last video, so be sure to go and check that out, guys, is that he's an absentee owner who really doesn't want to face the music of it, and is the complete opposite of the guys that he supposedly had looked up to in a George Steinbrenner and Silvio Berlusconi way. And by the way, has mentioned he doesn't want to be like them stylistically in terms of going into the dressing room and taking this sort of reserved style and taking a seat back. You can't do that at Milan. It's impossible. It's impossible. What are your thoughts on like this whole thing? And that's not even getting into yesterday, where we have the private event where players alike and the manager and everyone shows up, and they're telling some players to get their balls out. They're telling other players, they're cheering for other players. It's very arbitrary about how they're going about it. Rafael Leao gets booed. Like, it's the ultras are saying, we don't want we're not Americans. We want Cardinale to sell. Like, this is close, but not insert coin, save AC Milan. What
Yeah,
is
it's just a bad look PR wise, obviously, from Gerry. And I think, look, moments like this where, the team is in a crisis. I consider it a crisis because I think it's an image crisis, and I think it's a performance crisis. Everyone has to look in the mirror and do better and reflect on this batch of months, this batch of games, and hopefully 2025 brings us more joy and more progression and growth with the project, which again is at a standstill in my opinion, right? And I think a lot of the hard work that was done with Maldini, Mazzara, previous regime ownership, and that previous squad, I think you're kind of we're on the brink of kind of wasting it, right? Because
yes,
1 year becomes two becomes three becomes, and then soon enough, it's like that's 5 or 6 years ago. And at some point, Milan fans and the ownership can't latch on and say, "Oh, we won a Scudetto. We won a Scudetto 2 years ago." At some point, that gets quickly aged, and it's right now. It's not aging well off the back of that, right? So I think when you see things transpire like this again on such a, it's supposed to be a joyful day. It's the holidays. 125th anniversary of our club.
Beautiful kit, by the way.
Just beautiful kit. Like you have all the legends, or the majority of them, right? The ones that you just mentioned didn't show up. But I think that we're at such a time right now where it's everyone's on edge, and the ultras. I think Kush made a great point in his video. Everyone's on edge about the direction or lack thereof with this club.
Yeah.
And the ultras are kind of speaking for the fan base that doesn't feel like they have a voice, right? Because ultimately we could go on a podcast, we can go on social media, all that stuff. The truth of the matter is, you can't get millions and millions of fans to flood into the San Siro, show up and have their voices heard in front of these players, in front of management, in front of everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So a big credit to them. Whether or not they were right to go to an event like this, I think that's, in my opinion, that's not really kind of my place, because everyone has their own way of expressing themselves, and I think the ultras who pour so much time, energy, and passion into this club, not saying that their voice should be more amplified or holds more weight than the casual fan or the fan that's at home and can't go to these matches, but I think again, what they say more times than not, I think the vast majority of the fan base globally agrees and aligns with, and they're right. They praise certain players that showed up at that event. Pulisic, Camarda, a 16-year-old, because I think that they kind of understand and identify with them more than maybe what some of these other players are putting up. I'm not saying Rafa deserved it. I'm not saying he didn't. I think he would agree. I agree, but I think that again, like you're the face of this club on the field. You have to put more in. You have to produce more. You have to. So does Tomori. Right? So does Teo. So does all these guys. The guys that are getting paid that money, we need more from you. Where is this resolve? Where is this fire and grinta and personality that says it stops now. We're taking this. We're not letting this get out of hand any further, and we're gonna change. We're gonna turn this around. Where is it? Everyone feels like they're just kind of going through the motions. They're playing. I'm not saying nobody's not trying, but again, like those little characteristics and personality traits of the Scudetto winning season and like in the build up to getting back to the Champions League, where when Milan had to get something and they needed just that little extra, you got it. You got it from them. Very few times did we question the overall effort and quality of play to this extent. We criticized, but I don't think that people had as much doubt back then, at least the core guys, than they do now. And I think that's very concerning because you lean on your top players in moments like this to steady the ship, right? Ask any big club that goes through stuff. I mean, I'm not comparing this to what Juventus went through with the whole Calciopoli scandal, but you think that Alessandro Del Piero didn't look himself in the mirror or had some moment of reflection and be like, I got to do something about this. Like, I love this club. This club means so much to me. It means so much to these fans. They deserve more. I'm going to do more for them. So again, it takes a lot of soul searching. It takes a lot of reflection. And I think that, it's just kind of a really frustrating time. I mean, this is supposed to be, just to kind of hammer it down once more, a great moment of celebration. I bought the jersey. I know many people bought the jersey. You have the holidays. We're supposed to be getting good results. We're supposed to be playing and winning games on the bounce, and we're not doing that. And for guys like Gerry to just be very tone deaf, not show up, and for him to eventually come out at some point, he might show himself Christmas time. Hey, Merry Christmas, and he'll be in frame at one of the games, sitting there being chummy. I agree with you. At some point, you have to show yourself. You have to show if you have to take accountability. You're the man. You're the owner.
It's
you own this team. This is your product that you're putting out there.
It's Jim Pallotta-esque. If you remember the Pallotta era under Roma, these promises about stadium, the promises of like a better future long term, and Pallotta never really showed up in Italy that often. He would hide. John Solano used to tell us that when we did the State of Play podcast. Like, Pallotta would not show up. This is what Gerry is. This is an absentee owner, someone who doesn't and routinely has stated doesn't know what he bought. And when you don't understand Milan, and Stevie P said this in the Milan Weekly podcast, and Stevie P is the best. Talk about having a pulse on how the fans feel. Stevie P is one of those guys. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. You have to understand what you're buying. And I talked about this on Adrian Rabona's channel. We talk about it all the time. And I'll address some comments that we've had stupidly in our YouTube section that I want to address. And Matt never wants to give attention to it. And I understand. But if you don't understand what you bought, you're going to sink. Because your asset's going to go to the shitter. This whole idea of 2 billion plus, it's not going to happen. You don't build a stadium. You don't have the team consistently qualifying for the Champions League. You don't keep great players. You don't add to that squad. How is your value going to go up? How is it ever going to possibly go up? It can't. It's only going to go down. And before we get into some of these other things, because it was the Maldini stuff, and it goes back to Maldini's sacking. This channel, okay, immediately, the live reaction and our takes from when Maldini was sacked, we were all infuriated. We were infuriated when Sandro Tonali was sold as well. We were all disappointed, Matt and myself included. I'm not going to speak for Matt, but I'll speak for myself when I say this. I don't appreciate lying. If you disagree with me, cool. No worries. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. But just don't lie about things that I apparently had not said or said, whatever the case may be. I'm not a big fan of Gerry. I've said it. I try and be objective. You guys have to understand the difference between the two. I never wanted Maldini out. I have always wanted Maldini in. And I think the club is worse for not having him. And if you want to lie about it, I'll ban you from the channel. It's pretty simple. So, yeah. Moving into the contract extensions. This is some positive stuff. I would assume So a lot kind of happened in a short amount of time, maybe a news dump in your opinion or not. But basically we had a lot of positive news regarding contract extensions of four of Milan's best players: Teo Hernandez, Mike Maignan, Christian Pulisic, and Tijani Reinders. Um, it seems as if Maignan is the closest of the bunch. It would be a 5-year extension for 5 million net. TG's extension reportedly being 1.3 million net up to 3 million net, which is incredible, far better than I thought they could have pulled off. So I have to give credit there if that's possible, because 3 million net for one of the best midfielders in Serie A is just, I think it's chef's kiss. That's still less money, by the way, than Ruben Loftus-Cheek gets paid. Okay, so just to put that into perspective for some people, Teo Hernandez, his agent's coming out and he's saying, and this is the one I want your biggest thoughts on. So actually, I'll do Pulisic first. Pulisic reportedly getting an increase from 4 to 5 million net for his contract through to 2029, which would be great. Christian's been awesome here. I had a video that I joined with Tactical Manager discussing Pulisic's future with Milan and just like how he's been overall. So be sure to check that out. It's great news for him as well. I think that's a no-brainer. And then lastly, Teo Hernandez. Teo, we hear his agent publicly, commenting and saying, Teo wants to stay here. We will reiterate our stance. We have to say this time and time again. He is happy here. He wants to sign and extend with Milan. A couple of people in my mentions regarding the Teo and the comment stuff, because to me it seems like the ball is in Milan's court for this extension. Some people think it's a similar play to what Frank Kessie did and Gigio Donnarumma. Before you answer that, thoughts on the other extensions and then overall Teo?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the other players, I would agree, right? They're all key cogs / cornerstone players of this current project, right? So Mike Maignan on those terms, I think is a good deal. I mean, keepers age differently than outfield players, and I know Mike Maignan has had injury concerns in the past, and that's always given fans pause on giving him a deal. One, it's not their money. Two, I think the money's pretty fair. It's a pay increase, but it's not outrageous money. And I think the contract will age pretty well. He's what, 27, 28, something like that. You sign him until 2029. You got another 5 years. He's going to be 32, 33. I mean, then you can kind of take it from there. But at that age, I don't really have any concerns that contract won't be a good one for us. I think he's a good leader. He's put in really good performances. You want to keep players in this position, especially, which I know people have said it's easy to replace goalkeepers. You can find them. But truthfully, I think the way that we defend and the way that we leak in goals, I think if it wasn't for Mike Maignan, this would be a lot worse than us and a lot worse than eighth. So I'm definitely fine with that. Tijani, no brainer. We talked about it with Ali. I think we went through and unpacked some of the reports regarding the figures and the terms and all that stuff. 3 million would be a slam dunk. I mean, you're doubling and more than doubling his wages. I know that Ali was saying that he thinks it could be a little bit more, but I think if it's 3 million, that's a slam dunk.
Great.
When you see in comparison to his quality, when you look at the fact that there's so many other players in this squad and in Serie A that can't pack his lunch, and he's obviously outplaying them, and he's probably deserving of more than 3 million if I'm being honest. Pulisic, we all talked about. That's a great deal. Want to keep him around. I think that he's deserving of that as well. And I wouldn't surprise me that if Calabria walks, or even if he stays, and Teo is on the kind of brink right now, which I'm going to talk about momentarily, it wouldn't surprise me if Pulisic is someone that is in contention for the captaincy. I'm not saying that he should get it over Rafa, but I'm not saying that he isn't maybe in line with that, because if you look at the way Ibra spoke about Pulisic in the documentary, I watched the first episode on Paramount, and the way that people view Pulisic and the way that he was received at that event, they see him as captain-like material, not just for his play, but the way he kind of goes about and carries his business. So those deals I'm totally fine with. Like I'm completely on board with that. Teo is an interesting one because I think that I can see where people have a little PTSD, right? Kessie was saying all the right things in the media, controlling the narrative and saying, I want to stay. Like, I'd love to stay here for the rest of my career. And then at the first term that some club gave him a little bit more money, he jumped, right? I think it's a little different conversation. I do think that Teo loves Milan. Am I saying that his decision or his play or his contract and his allegiance to Maldini has anything, like if that is kind of giving him pause on committing to this team, I don't know, because you mentioned his agents did say, like, we're reiterating our stance. He wants to stay. I think it could be one of two things. Milan and Teo and his entourage mend any sort of issue that is there, whether it's been blown up out of proportion by the media or not, or it's a narrative controlling thing where it's PR and he says, I wanted to stay. My agent told the media many times that I wanted to stay, but then Milan looks like the bad guy because they're feeling some type of way and they don't agree or like the way he's been performing. So they go and sell him. And rather than getting the blame, it's looked back on by Teo. So I think Teo is trying to get ahead of it. I think his contract expires in 2026, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So that's kind of how I view it. And by the way, this is the last thing I'll say on Teo as well. I know he hasn't performed well this season relative to standard, relative to expectation, relative to what we need him to do. But this is still a player I really appreciate at this club. I think that this is not an easy situation. I think that, yes, he does need to play better. Yes, he needs to show up, just like I mentioned with those other key guys. Like, they need to put forth a bigger performance. You've been here for 5-6 years. Like, you guys have to show up and do more. So I do want to keep him. If the terms are good and we can get him on good terms and he does stay, I'm happy to have him. But I think that the way this feels like it's shaping up is that Milan are prioritizing renewals for other players. Teo is going to be one that drags into the summer, and it wouldn't surprise me if they move on from him. Truthfully, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, and I wouldn't even be 100% opposed if this bullshit with this,
provided the fee is because he's not playing well. So
but you know what? You know what too. As much as I like the player, I'm sick of his bullshit. I really am. And I think it's completely plausible, and I'm really sick of the other people pretending like it's recent. He was awful last year too by his standards. Let's not mince things here. And I'm not saying you are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit. I had someone tell me that his center back performances were the best since Thiago Silva at this club. The amount that people lie about things is insane. He was subpar last year as a whole, just like many other players were. And it's not exclusive to him. But when it's consistently shown up, there's one thing I can tolerate. I can tolerate poor play from a stretch of time. I defend Rafael Leao, but even though he should be more consistent in scoring goals. However, I cannot stand this coddling of a player, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but the coddling of a player because Maldini is not here. Oh, Teo's not in the right headspace because Paulo isn't here to put his shoulder around him. You're a professional at Milan. Okay? How old are you? You need him to be here for you. Why are you at my club then? Why are you here? If that's the case. If that's true, if you're so disgruntled, you should have asked to leave. If it's going to affect your performances and your effort. This is an effort problem. Effort. And if you can't put in effort, I don't give a shit how talented you are. You could leave. I really don't care. Because why would anybody want someone to stick around who puts in half the effort, asks for all that money, and doesn't produce? Because if we're talking about wanting the standards at Milan, then everybody should fall in line. That's why I love Rafa's comments. You don't have to love Paulo Fonseca. I am at odds against quite a few of the things that he's done and said. But look at how Rafa talks about this stuff. He never causes problems. Teo, on the pitch, getting red cards when he's the captain, taking away penalties, also playing like garbage. And just like the pretending of this guy, like being better than what he's been the past 2 years. And I defend him at all turns. Best left back in the world on his day, all these sort of things. But I'm sorry, if you do not put in the effort, a sale is justified. A sale is absolutely justified. And people are going to get angry at management and ownership, and I understand, because they are to blame to an extent. Absolutely. But you know what? At the end of the day, Milan still have to have standards. And if everyone agrees upon that, and this guy isn't falling in those lines of those standards, then you can go. Same goes for Calabria. Shit attitude on top of shit play, get out, buddy. It's fine. I don't care. They'll find someone else. I've seen Kaká leave this club. I do not care if any of you who put in shit effort stay or go. It's really that simple for me. And this is not, I'm not banging at the drum like sell Teo no matter what. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is he has to play consistently well, and he has to stop with the antics. Enough. Because the club is going to sink because of that. We need this player to be great. That's the biggest problem. Because look at how we play without him sometimes. Jimenez put in a good shift, sure, fine. But let's be real here. Teo Hernandez, if he's at his best, Milan are a far better team. They're far more dangerous. There's no denying it. And this isn't me against Teo. If he wants to stay, he changes things. They pay him a 5 million net, I think it was, right? So that's a good number. That's fine with me. It's not 8 million. 8 million would have been too much. I'd have been like, no. But 5 million net, that's fine. It's acceptable. But turn your shit around. Because to me, when you're idle and someone that inspired you like Maldini, and you take away a lot from him, and you play the same position as him, and he wore the same captain's armband that he did, and you conduct yourself in the complete opposite in which he did, he would be disappointed in him. I'm sure of it. I'm sure he would have. For multiple.
I think something, but that's what I think that, people will have, and we've talked about Maldini in so many episodes, but I think that that's kind of where I think that people are maybe losing sight of just how important and influential he was in his role, Maldini, because we're seeing what his replacements aren't doing and how that was such a driving force for certain players.
Camaraderie is not there.
And I'm not saying that Teo has an excuse, but I think that the core players that we have on this team, I'll throw Tomori in there. The way they talked about their move to Milan and what led to it and what drove them, a lot of them basically always said Maldini. Like Fikayo Tomori was saying it. Teo was saying it. So I think that people have to also put that into perspective and give that its praise, because for all the criticism that people are giving Maldini, there's certain sectors of the fan base that like to bash Maldini for the director. And you can criticize the market. You can criticize the things he didn't do in his role to help elevate Milan. But to the extent that I'm seeing it become like a joke, that this guy, that it's a club legend, is being disrespected in this fashion, is pretty disgusting. And I truly can't associate with that part of the fan base. I agree with you. Very, of course. It's very frustrating, right? So again, I think that people are really now seeing, okay, like maybe where Maldini fell short in the markets, like, man, he paid it a little extra, but by his presence at Milanello and because he would be around. And I'm not saying Ibrahimovic hasn't been talking to these players. It doesn't have to be a photo opportunity. But I think it's different. There were countless times during those years where Milan were trying to get back into the Champions League and the Scudetto winning season, where at the final whistle, Maldini's rushing down. He's shaking every player's hand. That's huge.
It's about presence.
That's creating, but Martino, that is creating culture.
Absolutely.
That's the culture that Maldini knew wasn't there, and that's why he didn't join initially years ago.
You
didn't just lose the director Maldini, you lost that sort of image, right? The brand and image of, okay, Maldini's a director, like beyond just the market side of things. When players come and they join this team, they know, like, man, I'm like Maldini speaking, I'm going to listen. When I had Galliani there, I'm going to listen. Like, this guy's he's seen top players. He's recruited top players. That has a lot of weight. And I just don't see it with this management. I think that there's ways to lead. There's ways to manage. That doesn't always require, again, photo ops and for you to be front and center all the time and to always be in the public eye. But I think with this group specifically, I think that they really are lacking that. And again, I'm not saying Ibrahimovic doesn't do it into his own way, but Ibrahimovic works for Redbird. Ibrahimovic works for Gerry. Guys,
it's a totally different role. We don't even know the role officially, and the camaraderie thing is just so important, and it's true, and it's establishing a culture. And we remember Maldini's comments about, it's an infamous one where he's like, they destroyed my Milan. And this is like before he came back to Milan.
Like
This is
2013, 2012.
yes, this is like after his retirement and before he comes back to the club. And I totally agree with you, and I totally agree with the sentiments in that you establish culture and it makes everything more serene for players. And what I'm saying with Teo, just for people to get a confusion, because Matt and I are still like talking about two different things when it comes to that. Because Matt's not saying, "Oh, that's a good excuse for Teo not to perform or be a professional because Maldini isn't there in his presence." That's not what Matt's saying. What Matt's saying is that there's a lot less problems when that person is in there talking to Pioli, that talks to the players, that talks to the youngsters, that talks to other people in the building.
Like
Because
let
yeah,
me add on to that too, right? Because I think you look at the way that Furlani and Ibrahimovic, right? Because I guess like you can maybe call them the directors, the guys that are typically front and center when
sure.
it comes to a new signing or talking about the market, right? And Moncada, we really don't hear much from him. But I think there was a different tone and delivery and way they handle themselves in the media, which can be ruthless when it came to PR with players, right? If a player had a bad performance, you have Rafa getting slandered in the media. You have this player getting slandered in the media. There was a way that kind of Maldini would speak out and compose himself in the media when things got tough, or when it came to the public, situations where Maldini would say certain things and it would be a little bit more serene and a little bit more controlled, where it would kind of feel like it would put you at ease a little bit. Like when people would say, "Why aren't Milan spending?" Maldini would come out and give you like a pretty clear answer, be like, "We're doing really well. The revenues are here, but we need to consistently be in the Champions League so we
Yeah.
can start spending," right?
Mm-hmm.
But now you have moments of delicacy now where if we get a good result, Ibrahimovic will put out a tweet, and Kush mentioned this, with a picture of himself after the Real Madrid win. Like, you didn't do anything. You didn't go on the field and do anything. And those types of remarks that like he would make, or Furlani would make, or whoever would make in the media, it just, the timing of them and the way that they're delivered, it almost like fans the flames a little bit. It's like, we don't need you to be this sort of lion, big talking personality now.
Yeah,
What we need
I've
you to
said that in
do,
the
what
past.
you need you to do, and we need is transparency. That's what fans need. They
He
need they
likes
need
speaking
calm.
in
They need
cryptic.
calm, and they
He
need
likes cryptic.
direction and understanding about where the project is headed. Not you to go and put a cryptic message out there and make it all about you. We don't need that.
He's
Be
a
a
he's
director.
a
Be a director.
yeah. Well, he's not. No one knows what he is, anyways. And
Director,
I said this, by the
partner,
way.
whatever.
It was the point that I made a couple months back, I think, where I was like, yeah, it's all fine and well when you're able to back it up on the pitch because you're a great player,
Correct.
but you're no longer a great player. You're just this figurehead talking piece
Zlatan, where are
puppet.
you when we shit the bed against Genoa on a big occasion? Are you going to post another photo? He didn't post anything. He only posts a photo when it's a victory and it makes him look good. But man, when it's bad,
Oh,
where's he?
by the way, do you know they sell his book on the team store, right?
I don't even care about that. And
That
then another thing,
no, I do
these guys
care
are
about that
cowards going in the
because you
side
want to know
entrance.
because you want
Side
to know
entrance.
why. I know you don't care about it, and I understand why. But here, for me, I dig deeper, and I'm not saying you don't, but to me, it's like a fucking business transaction. Like, yeah, you be our talking piece, our director. You could push your book on our site. You could sell it as much. What does that have to do with Milan? Why is he getting a cut of that? Why is that a thing? You know, like they're gouging us in our pockets. They do. They do.
Going through the side
Look
door.
at how they sell shit. They have fucking panettone on the site. Do you know how much it costs? By the way, you saw it, right?
No, I didn't see it.
How much the panettone costs?
No.
If you were ever to guess, go guess.
$50.
Well, I think maybe it depends. But €40.
So
It's
I said
insane.
I would say about 50 USD.
Yeah, just fucking insane. It's insulting. It's incredibly ridiculous. And that's again another point of emphasis for disconnect. Champions League prices, tickets here, tickets there. It's gonna blow up in their face if it hasn't already. They play tomorrow. In
No,
2 days.
Friday.
Sorry.
2 days.
So listen, it's against Verona. They got to get 3 points. Will they get 3 points? I don't know. I don't know who's starting yet. We don't know. I think Teo is supposed to be benched again. So that means Jimenez tip to start. There's no Pulisic for the 10. Maybe RLC goes to the 10. What would you do? What is your starting lineup? Say Teo is benched. It's Jimenez in there. Do you want Liberali starting again? What is your prediction? For me, I think Milan end up scoring. Verona isn't this great defensive side that like sit backs and defends. I think Milan are going to go in and get a win here. Still not a good team, but I think they win.
I just don't even want to give them the credit of that. Truthfully, I don't think.
I understand.
Like, I'll try to remove emotion from it because you can tell by the last part of this podcast, for those listening and even watching, you could see it in my face. If you guys watch it, that's an actual incentive to watch it because you could see me getting red and pissed off because it's frustrating when, we're having to come on here and preview matches and talk about certain things. And it's just all negative. It's all frustration. And I think I'm reaching my point. And when it comes to matches like this, with that being said,
I don't
think they're deserving of me giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to get the result, that they're going to figure it out in 3 days, 4 days since the fiasco of the Genoa game and the entire event.
5 days, yeah. But
I'm gonna go 1-1. I'm gonna go 1-1 until they give me a reason. Until they give me a reason to give them confidence and to have that sort of inkling that they're going to just turn a corner. I'm not going to give it to them. And this isn't me speaking on emotion and saying that, well, I'm not going to, I don't want them to win. No, I always support this team till death, right? This is a till death relationship here. Same thing with you. But I just don't see it with this team. I've tried to wait each week. I've tried, maybe in a couple weeks they'll figure it out. They beat Real Madrid. This is where they launch off.
Nah, this is
I've tried to turn a corner, and I've tried to be very objective and fair. And same thing on social media and in conversation, interaction with the fans and audience. I just can't do it anymore. I can't come out here and say they're going to figure it out defensively. I can't say that they're even going to score goals, which was a strength, and that was something I always praised them for early part of the season. Pulisic is injured. Rafa's not really clicking. He's kind of cooled a little bit, right? I mean, I know he had the goal in the Champions League. Morata can't hit the broadside of a barn.
That's the one, yeah.
Who's scoring the goals? Show me who's scoring the goals. I think they'll get a goal because, again, I don't think Verona is another worldly team. I don't even think that despite where their position is in the league table, they're a team that is going to be a laydown. These teams like Genoa, like that we've seen time and time again, they're not afraid of this Milan.
No.
They're Milan only in name, not in quality on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go 1-1. And the plot thickens regarding Fonseca and this Milan.
Reports said that even if they lose, Fonseca's okay, which I'm inclined to believe.
I agree.
They do things.
But doesn't mean the media is not going to pull back.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Go for it. Pour it on.
I
don't care. 2-1 Milan. I think it's at the Bentagoli, right? Because they just played that, listen, it's sad that we have to come here and talk about it and be this annoyed. But we do appreciate everybody that decides to tune in. Despite all that, I hope this allows you to vent your frustrations out as supporters. Let us know your predictions for Friday if you have any, or if you have any interest in giving those out. Totally understand. Regardless, excuse me, sorry. Talking about Milan makes me tired. But yeah, in general, we really appreciate all your support. The road to 5K, we're almost there. Had a viral tweet that got us an extra 12 subs or so. So that's about it. But again, everything that Matt and I have said, like we really do appreciate all the support. We appreciate the good community of people who actually are decent enough to support all of us as well. In turn, Kush's channel, we're glad to see is alive and bumping with a heartbeat.
He's been turning out content, so go show him some love, guys.
Yeah, I mean he's a superstar of Milan YouTube now. I think he's got to be, especially for English. I think he's like 13K subs. So you guys,
he's crushing it.
Yeah, and again, Sempre Milan as well, always putting out good stuff. MLM podcast, Milan Weekly podcast, Coast to Coast, Fabio and Gio. Old Hard Rossonero, good friend. Shout out Uncle Sharma. I did go on Rabona TV earlier this morning to talk with Adrian, and I gave him a whole lowdown on the entire situation with Gerry Cardinale and Milan. So that should be out sometime this week. So look out for that. And if you want to vent your frustrations out to other YouTube channels, venture out over there. Rabona, be respectful, give him a sub. He has some of the best content in the world.
A lot of evergreen content too, so it's easily revisitable. Some really good stuff in there.
Bro, I consume Rabona content like I consume cookies. Like he's just inhaling them. It's just, dude, like the guy does a great job. He really does, and he couldn't be nicer. Puts in a lot of effort, so be sure to check that out. And also, Tactical Manager went on his channel. He just posted the video. I was on with Marco Messina, and the subject matter, Mr. Santangelo, I don't know if you saw it, was, can Christian Pulisic become a Milan legend? We got into all that on the channel, so be sure to go check that out. Santangelo's links are below, at Matt_Santangelo, at AC Milan Bros. The Santangelo brothers both got the 125th kit, correct?
Yeah, my brother got the limited release one too.
Okay.
One that like Franco from AC Milan Club New York got. It's like more, and I think Ali got it as well. It's more like a garment, like it's like a heavy kind of long sleeve. That's more of like a keepsake. He got that, and then me and him got like a number 10 of the other jersey. So it's nice. It'll be a nice addition. I will say, obviously, Rafa is the number 10, and he's one of my favorite players on the team. But it doesn't have a name on it, so like I feel like just like a number 10. Like if you look back at like old jerseys with just
okay. You're chilling.
Like it looks clean too. Like it looks like a clean jersey. So,
if anyone asks you, it's a Clarence Seedorf jersey. It's a KSK Honda jersey.
It's a Honda jersey. What other number 10s did we have? What other number 10s can we?
I can't.
Walter Birsa, he was like
30 something,
31 or something.
Who knows? That's so funny. I'm just busting balls. Honda was awful. Anyways, again, at that Milan podcast, that Milan pod. We are on TikTok. Well, I'm on TikTok, Santangelo. So,
that's a New Year's resolution / goal for me, is to put out more TikTok content in conjunction with what Martino does on that Milan podcast.
Or just get on TikTok? Are you not?
No, I don't want to create my own TikTok.
No. I'm saying, like, are you even like,
I'm not even on it. But like, as far as creating like the quick, digestible, like easily consumable content, because I think it's like a really good medium.
No, I'm just thinking of you, like, figuring it. It's gonna be so funny.
It's gonna be fun, but I'm committed to it. That's one of my goals, is from like a content side.
Please, because I need help over here.
I got you, bro.
But yes, we appreciate all the support everywhere. And by the way, anytime you see that El Shaarawy tweet, that was me. I'm the OG. That's my tweet. So many people are stealing it. I keep on getting DMs from all these like followers on Instagram saying, like, look at this Instagram account. They stole it. They have this. Fuck you guys. Credit me at least.
You got to put a steak watermark on it,
bro. Unbelievable. But it did bang. So, hey, we'll take those $10 from Milan. All right. Other than that, thank you guys so much. Take care.